a bit of kind of a conundrum coming up in Alzheimer's research that I would love to talk about. Something came out in the last few weeks, fraud and all kinds of different collusions. It looks like and involved with Alzheimer's research, which I know you're very much into. So I'm wondering if you know much about that and can comment on that.
Yeah, there was some big buzz several weeks ago where some of the initial research that was done on amyloid, these amyloid plaques and Alzheimer's disease was revealed to be totally fraudulent. And to be completely honest with you and your listeners and viewers, I didn't really read a lot of the articles where they were exposing this fraud because my stance all along, and I wrote my book, The Alzheimer's Antidote, over 5 years ago. It was published in March 2017. I can't believe it, but I was not surprised. So I said something on Twitter to the effect of, I'm not shocked at all that this fraud, that this all the amyloid stuff has been revealed to be fraudulent. I'm much more surprised that the amyloid hypothesis ever gained as much traction as it did, because when you look at the molecular mechanisms of the amyloid buildup versus people who don't have a lot of amyloid buildup, amyloid is so very clearly not the cause of Alzheimer's and never was. And there's just no, there's a whole chapter in my Alzheimer's book on amyloid and the fallacies of the amyloid hypothesis and how much of the amyloid perspective doesn't fit with how the disease actually develops and progresses. And so like I said, I'm far more surprised that the amyloid, they call it the amyloid hypothesis, that ever got as much traction as it did in the research world. Every single anti-amyloid drug that's ever been developed has been a failure. They do nothing to reduce, to stop the progression of Alzheimer's, let alone reverse it. At best, it slows it down a tiny bit, and even that's pretty rare. And so that alone should tell us, okay, our scientists have done a bang-up job. They've created drugs that do reduce the formation of amyloid, but reducing the formation of amyloid has never done anything to positively impact the disease process. So, hey, maybe it's not the amyloid, huh? And I can send you a link. We can post it in the notes. Maybe I've written an article or two about the flaws of the amyloid hypothesis and just how much it fails to match up with the clinical observations of the actual disease. So I don't know why anyone is surprised, frankly. It's a shame, it's tragic, but I'm not yeah, again, the thing that surprises me is that as many scientists ever bought into this as did.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I remember when we chatted about Alzheimer's in episode 68, and we mentioned in the introduction, we talked specifically about Alzheimer's, and I asked you about that, and you were highly suspicious of that research even then. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So that was going to be one of my questions. Knowing what you know now, after the book has been out 5 years, is there anything that you now need to go back and change in the book, or are you just kind of sitting around saying like, yeah, I kind of feel pretty good about everything I wrote?
I hate to say it, but I'll be completely honest with you. I don't think there's anything in that book that has proven to be incorrect. I think everything in it is still accurate. If anything, the research that has been done since it was published only confirms that much more what I initially said, the connections between systemic insulin resistance, glucose intolerance, diabetes, metabolic syndrome as massive risk factors for cognitive decline. Probably the only thing I would do is put even more emphasis on the other things that affect cognitive function as we age. Well, I guess this is dietary, but it's not just that glucose insulin angle. I think I did have a whole chapter in there on B12 and myelin, but I would kind of really hammer home how many older people are either B12 deficient or like subclinically insufficient. They're not like deficient, but they don't have enough. They're just, it's an insufficiency, and that can absolutely affect cognition. And I do have a whole chapter in there on cholesterol and statin drugs, but I still think that the impact of statin drugs on the brain is radically underappreciated. Not all statins affect cognition, because it seems to be only the ones that cross the blood-brain barrier. So there's certain types of statins that don't really get into the brain, and some that do, or maybe some that do more easily. Those seem to have more of those cognitive effects, but that cholesterol, and I'm not a medical doctor, please everyone, this isn't medical information. I'm not telling you to discontinue any drugs you're taking, but I think people need to be much more aware that that is absolutely a potential side effect of some of these drugs. So, but other than that, I don't think anything that I wrote 5 years ago has been, proven false.